Imagine this, a massive space station hurling through space at 27,000 kilometers per hour, completely out of control. No power, no communication, and no crew on board. Sounds like a plot of the sci-fi movie, right? But this was real. This was the Salyut 7, a Soviet space station that faced one of the most serious crises in space history. And what happened next? Well, it's a story that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Let's rewind a bit. During the Cold War, the USA and the Soviet Union were locked in a fierce competition to prove who was the superior superpower. This wasn't just about military might. It was about technology, innovation, and of course, space exploration. Both nations poured billions of dollars into their space programs, and the results were groundbreaking. We're talking about inventions like the internet, jet aircraft, and GPS, things we still use today. But the space race? That was the ultimate battleground. In the 1970s, both countries started launching space stations. The USA had Skylab, and the Soviet Union had the Salyut series. These weren't the massive structures we think of today, like the International Space Station. They were small, single-unit stations designed for short-term research missions. But the competition quickly escalated. The new goal? To see which country could keep their astronauts, or cosmonauts, as the Soviets called them, in space the longest. By 1980, the Soviet Union was ready to take things to the next level. They planned to build Mir, a fully fledged space station that would be a permanent presence in orbit. But Mir wasn't ready yet, and they needed something to fill the gap. Enter Salyut 7. Launched in 1982, this space station was a step up from its predecessors. It had docking ports on both ends, allowing for crew rotations and supply deliveries at the same time. It was a game changer. For the first year, everything went smoothly. The crew set a new world record by staying in space for 211 days. They even launched a 28-kilogram radio satellite from the station's airlock, a first in space history. But then, things started to go wrong. In September 1983, cosmonauts noticed something strange: zero pressure in one of the fuel tanks. That's a big problem. In space, even a tiny hole can cause a massive leak because of the vacuum. Sure enough, they found a fuel leak outside the station. Repairing it wasn't easy. The cosmonauts didn't have the right tools, so the ground team had to send up a special aircraft with the equipment they needed. Using old-school welding techniques, they managed to seal the leak. It was a huge win, but little did they know, an even bigger challenge was just around the corner. Fast forward to 1984. The crew left Salyut 7 in autopilot mode and returned to Earth. The ground team kept an eye on the station remotely, but on February 11, 1985, disaster struck. Salyut 7 lost all contact with Earth. An electrical surge had knocked out its systems. The backup communication system kicked in briefly, but then another surge hit, and the station went completely dark. It was drifting out of control, and the Soviet Union had no way to fix it. Or so it seemed. When the USA caught wind of the situation, they saw an opportunity. They planned to capture Salyut 7 using their space shuttle and bring it back to Earth. Would have been a huge PR win for them, but the Soviet Union wasn't about to let that happen. Their Buran shuttle was still in development, so they couldn't use that. Instead, they decided to attempt something no one had ever done before: send a crew to manually repair the station. On June 6, 1985, two cosmonauts, Vladimir Dzhonbyakov and Viktor Savyink, launched aboard the Soyuz spacecraft. Their mission? To dock with Salyut 7, figure out what went wrong, and fix it. Sounds simple, right? Not so fast. The station was completely dead. No power, no lights, no communication. It was like trying to dock with a ghost. To make matters worse, Salyut 7 was spinning out of control. The cosmonauts had to use a laser rangefinder to calculate its distance and align their spacecraft with its rotation. It was a delicate, high-stakes operation. One wrong move, and they could crash into the station or miss it entirely. But against all odds, they pulled it off. They manually docked with Salyut 7, something that had never been done before. When they opened the hatch, they were hit with a blast of freezing air. The temperature inside was negative 150 degrees Celsius. That's colder than Antarctica in the dead of winter. The heating system had failed, and the station was completely frozen. The cosmonauts also discovered high levels of carbon monoxide, which meant there had been a fire at some point. The air circulation system was down, making it hard to breathe. With limited oxygen and supplies, they had to work fast. Only one cosmonaut could enter the station at a time, and they had just 8 days worth of food and water. Stretching it to 12 days would mean rationing everything. But they didn't give up. After a thorough inspection, they found the root cause of the problem: a faulty sensor in the battery system. This tiny sensor had prevented the batteries from charging, causing the entire station to shut down. Replacing the sensor was no easy task in those conditions, but they managed to do it. They also repositioned the solar panels to restore power. Slowly but surely, Salyut 7 came back to life. It was a miracle. The station remained operational for another year before being replaced by Mir. But the story doesn't end there. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, funding for the space program dried up. Salyut 7 was abandoned and eventually re-entered Earth's atmosphere uncontrollably. It broke apart over South America, marking the end of an era. So, what can we learn from this incredible story? For one, it's a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Against all odds, the Soviet cosmonauts pulled off what seemed impossible. It's also a reminder of how far we've come in space exploration. Today, we have the International Space Station, a symbol of global cooperation. But back then, it was all about competition, and sometimes that competition led to incredible achievements. And let's not forget the fun facts. Did you know that the Soviet Union refused to call their space crew astronauts because the USA used that term? They went with cosmonauts instead. It's little details like these that make the story even more fascinating. So there you have it, the impossible rescue of Salyut 7. A story of courage, innovation, and a little bit of Cold War rivalry. Next time you look up at the night sky, remember the incredible feats humans have accomplished in the vastness of space. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be part of the next great space adventure. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most thrilling moments in space history. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Until next time, keep looking up.